The Galactic Council underestimated Earth's military power. Commander Freya Lynn stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Prometheus, watching the colossal structure of Nexus Prime grow larger through the reinforced viewport. The Galactic Council's capital station was a marvel of engineering. 3 massive rings rotating around a central hub, each ring large enough to house 1 million beings from across the galaxy. "Commander, we're receiving docking instructions from Station Control," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communications station. His voice carried the tension everyone felt. This was humanity's first formal appearance before the Galactic Council, and the weight of representing Earth pressed heavily on every crew member's shoulders. Freya adjusted her crisp Navy uniform and turned to the woman beside her. Ambassador Rachel Torres was Earth's most accomplished diplomat, fluent in 12 alien languages, and known for her ability to navigate the most complex political situations. Yet even she seemed tense as they approached their destiny. "Any last-minute advice, Ambassador?" Freya asked with a slight smile. Rachel smoothed her formal diplomatic robes and checked her translator device one final time. "Remember, Commander, we're here to prove that humanity deserves a seat at the table. The Council has been watching us for decades, and many of them see us as primitive warmongers." Freya looked back at the station. Somewhere inside that massive structure, representatives from 73 different species were waiting to judge humanity's worthiness to join galactic civilization. The thought should have been intimidating, but Freya had spent 25 years in Earth's military, and she'd learned that the best defense against prejudice was quiet competence. The docking procedure took 40 minutes. As the airlock cycled open, 2 council representatives waited to escort them. The first was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and luminous blue eyes, a Etherian Freya recognized from her briefings. The second looked like a walking tree with crystalline bark that chimed softly with each movement. "I am Counselor Veltar of the Etherian Collective," the silver-skinned alien said, his voice melodious and precise. "This is Counselor Cathara of the Verdant Communion. We will escort you to the Grand Assembly." They walked through corridors that defied human architectural understanding. The ceiling curved impossibly upward, creating the illusion of walking through a vast canyon of light. Holographic displays showed peaceful scenes from countless worlds, beings of every conceivable form living in harmony. "Your species' reputation precedes you," Counselor Veltar said as they walked. "The Council is curious about humanity's approach to conflict resolution." Freya caught the diplomatic phrasing. "You mean our military history?" "Indeed. In the past 1,000 years, no species has been admitted to the Council with such an extensive record of warfare. Most civilizations abandon such primitive behaviors before achieving interstellar travel." The Grand Assembly Chamber was breathtaking. Freya estimated it could hold 50,000 beings, and today it was nearly full. The representatives sat in concentric circles that rose like an amphitheater, each section designed for different atmospheric and gravitational needs. At the center stood a raised platform where petitioners presented their cases. In Council Prime, Zethkalar rose from his position at the highest tier. He was massive even by the standards of his species, the Titan Collective, standing nearly 4 meters tall, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed with inner fire. "Representatives of Earth," his voice boomed through the chamber's translation system. "You stand before the Galactic Council seeking membership in our alliance of civilized worlds. State your case." Ambassador Torres stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "Honored Council Prime, distinguished representatives, I am Ambassador Rachel Torres of the United Earth Federation. We come before you not to beg for acceptance, but to offer partnership." A ripple of what Freya assumed was amusement passed through the assembled aliens. Several made sounds that the translator rendered as polite laughter. "Partnership?" asked Counselor Mordeth, a spider-like being from the arachnid Concordat. "What could a species that still maintains standing armies offer to those who have transcended the need for violence?" Torres's expression remained calm. "We offer experience, perspective, and the willingness to stand against threats that peaceful civilizations cannot face alone." This time the laughter was louder and came from most of the assembly. Council Prime Zethkalar raised one massive hand for silence. "Ambassador Torres, Your species maintains over 200,000 active military personnel across 17 battle fleets. Your planet bristles with weapons capable of destroying entire continents. This council has maintained peace for over 3 millennia without such crude instruments. And how do you maintain that peace, Council Prime? Torres asked quietly. Through the Harmony Protocols, replied Counselor Yilneth of the Pacifica Union. All member species agree to submit disputes to Council mediation. We have eliminated war through the simple expedient of refusing to engage in it. Freya watched the exchange with growing understanding. These beings hadn't eliminated war. They had simply agreed to ignore it. She wondered what happened to species that didn't voluntarily join their peaceful alliance. The Council's wisdom is renowned throughout the galaxy, Torres said diplomatically. However, Earth's history has taught us that some conflicts cannot be resolved through negotiation alone. We offer our experience in dealing with such situations. You offer violence, stated Counselor Veltar flatly. The Council has no need for such primitive solutions. Suddenly, alarms began wailing throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the assembly chamber in pulsing red, and urgent announcements in dozens of languages filled the air. The translator picked up key phrases: priority alert, unknown vessels, hostile actions. Council Prime Zethkalar's obsidian features showed surprise. Apparently nothing like this had happened in living memory. A smaller alien, resembling a floating jellyfish, approached the platform and whispered urgently to him. It appears, the Council Prime announced, his voice no longer entirely steady, that our outer monitoring stations have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels approaching the Altair system. 3 of our peaceful survey ships have ceased responding to communications. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Freya noticed that none of the aliens seemed to know how to process the information that they might be facing an actual threat. Council Prime, Ambassador Torres said, stepping forward. Earth's fleet stands ready to assist in investigating this situation. Our ships are already in the region and could respond immediately. Absolutely not, snapped Counselor Mordeth. We will not have your warships contaminating our space with their violent presence. The Council will dispatch a diplomatic mission to establish communication with these newcomers. And if they're not interested in diplomacy? Freya asked, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. The question seemed to stump the assembled representatives. After 3,000 years of forced peace, they had apparently forgotten that not everyone in the universe might share their commitment to nonviolence. All intelligent species are interested in diplomacy, Counselor Yilneth said with absolute certainty. Violence is the refuge of the primitive and the desperate. These newcomers simply need to understand our ways. Over the next 6 hours, as the Council debated the proper diplomatic protocols for first contact, the situation in the Altair system deteriorated rapidly. 3 more survey ships went silent. A research station with 10,000 inhabitants stopped transmitting. The Council's diplomatic mission was destroyed before it could even broadcast a greeting. Freya stood in the human delegation's assigned quarters, monitoring the reports from Earth's intelligence network. Lieutenant Webb worked at a portable communication station, maintaining contact with the U.S. Valkyrie, Earth's most advanced battleship, which was conducting reconnaissance near the edge of the crisis zone. Commander, Captain Rodriguez is reporting massive energy signatures throughout the Altair system, Webb reported. Whatever these ships are, they're not here to chat. Any word from the Council? Freya asked. They're forming a committee to study the situation, Webb replied with barely concealed frustration. Estimated completion time for their analysis: 2 weeks. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Ambassador Torres activated the door, and Counselor Veltar entered, looking deeply troubled. His usually perfect composure had cracked, revealing something that looked almost like fear. Ambassador, I need to speak with you privately, he said, glancing around the room nervously. Torres dismissed the staff, leaving only herself and Freya with the Etherian counselor. What can we do for you, Counselor? Torres asked. I have served on this council for 200 years, Veltar began, his melodious voice strained. In all that time, we have never faced a genuine external threat. Our military, if you can call it that, consists of lightly armed patrol ships designed for search and rescue operations. And now? Freya prompted. Now we face something that our peaceful methods cannot address. The ships in the Altair system are not responding to communication attempts. They are systematically destroying everything they encounter. Our intelligence suggests they are from a species called the Devourers, a name that appears in the oldest galactic records. Freya felt a chill. What do the records say about them? They consume entire civilizations, not just the people, the planets, the resources, everything. They appeared in this galaxy over 5,000 years ago, destroyed dozens of star systems, then vanished. We thought they were extinct, but they're not, Torres said grimly. No, and now they have returned, and the Council has no idea how to stop them. Our representatives are still debating whether violence is ever justified, even in self-defense. Freya looked at the Etherian counselor with new understanding. What do you want from us, counselor? I want you to do what your species does best, Commander. I want you to fight. The next morning, Freya stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber was only half full. Many representatives had returned to their home worlds to prepare for what they now realized might be the end of galactic civilization. Council Prime, Freya began, the Devourer fleet has entered the Beta Centauri system. They have begun harvesting the inhabited worlds there. 6 billion beings are under direct threat. Commander Lin, Council Prime Zethkala replied, the Council appreciates your expertise in such matters. However, we cannot simply abandon 3 millennia of peaceful evolution because of a single crisis. A single crisis? Freya's voice carried a note of incredulity. Council Prime, these beings are conducting genocide on a galactic scale. How many worlds need to die before you admit that some problems can't be solved with conversation? You advocate for war, accused Councillor Mordith. You would have us become like you, violent, aggressive, consumed by conflict. I advocate for survival, Freya shot back, and I'm offering you something your civilization has forgotten, the willingness to fight for what matters. An elderly alien that Freya didn't recognize rose from the upper tiers. Her species looked vaguely reptilian, with scales that shimmered like pearls and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. I am Elder Tessera of the Archive Keepers, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying through the entire chamber. I have lived for 800 years, and I remember the stories of the first Devourer invasion. The chamber fell silent. The Archive Keepers were the galaxy's living memory, beings who dedicated their long lives to preserving knowledge. The Devourers were stopped, Tessera continued, by a coalition of warrior species who understood that sometimes peace must be defended with violence. Those species are gone now, extinct, evolved beyond recognition, or converted to the Council's peaceful ways. Only humanity remains to remember what we have forgotten. What are you saying, Elder? Asked Council Prime Zethkala. I am saying that we need warriors again, and we need them now. Captain Maria Rodriguez received her orders while the UES Valkyrie was conducting surveillance of the Devourer fleet. Around her, the ship's crew worked with the calm efficiency of professionals who had trained for exactly this moment. Captain, we're receiving priority communications from Admiral Thompson, reported her communications officer. He's authorizing Operation Prometheus. Maria nodded grimly. Operation Prometheus was Earth's contingency plan for a large-scale galactic threat. A full military deployment using every asset humanity could muster. It was the kind of operation that could either save the galaxy or turn every civilized species against humanity forever. All stations, this is the captain. We are now at full combat readiness. Remember your training, trust your crewmates, and let's show the galaxy what humans can do when we're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. The Valkyrie's sensor operator, Lieutenant Commander James Park, looked up from his console with a grim expression. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Devourer fleet. They're not just harvesting the planets in Beta Centauri, they're cracking them open like eggs. Maria studied the tactical display. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to grow rather than being built. They moved with purpose and coordination that spoke of a hive mind intelligence. So, how long until they finish with Beta Centauri? She asked. At their current rate, maybe 18 hours. After that, they'll probably move on to the next inhabited system, which would be Prima Centauri, home to the Etherian Collective. Population, 43 billion. Maria activated the ship's communication system. Admiral Thompson, this is Captain Rodriguez. Request permission to engage the Devourer fleet. The Admiral's weathered face appeared on the screen. Maria, you're looking at ships the size of small moons. Your orders are to observe and report, not to engage. Sir, with respect, observation isn't going to save 43 billion lives. Captain, you have one ship against a fleet of unknown size and capability. It would be suicide. Maybe. But maybe it would also buy enough time for the cavalry to arrive. Admiral Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Captain, you are hereby authorized to use your best judgment in defending Galactic's civilian populations. Earth's fleet will be there in 12 hours. Understood, sir. Valkyrie out. Maria turned to her crew. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to make history. We're going to be the first humans to engage an enemy in defense of alien civilians. Make it count. The UES Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Beta Centauri system and immediately faced a sight that would haunt every crew member for the rest of their lives. 3 planets that had been green and blue just days before were now brown and dead, their surfaces strip mined down to bedrock. The Devourer ships hung in space like malignant tumors, their organic hulls pulsing with unnatural light. Captain, sensors are detecting life signs on the 4th planet, reported Lieutenant Park. Approximately 2 million beings in underground shelters. The surface cities are gone, but the people are still alive. How long before the Devourers reach them? Maybe 6 hours at their current harvesting rate. Maria looked at her tactical display. 1 human ship against a fleet of alien vessels, each one capable of destroying entire worlds. The smart play would be to wait for reinforcements. The human play was to fight for those 2 million lives, regardless of the odds. All hands, battle stations. We're going to give those people a chance. The Valkyrie's attack began with a full spread of quantum torpedoes targeted at the largest Devourer ship. The weapon struck the organic hull and exploded in brilliant flashes of light, but when the glare faded, the ship seemed barely damaged. Captain, our weapons are having minimal effect, reported the tactical officer. Their hull seems to be regenerating. Then we keep hitting them until they can't regenerate anymore, Maria replied calmly. All weapons, continuous fire. Make them notice us. For the next hour, the Valkyrie danced through space, using every trick in the human tactical manual to stay ahead of the Devourer ship's response. They were fast and powerful, but they moved with the ponderous certainty of beings who had never faced serious resistance. Captain, we're taking heavy damage to the port shields, called the engineering officer. I don't know how much more we can take. Just a little longer, Maria said, watching her tactical display. Come on, where are you? As if answering her prayer, space around the Beta Centauri system suddenly filled with the energy signatures of ships dropping out of hyperspace. But these weren't just human vessels. Maria counted ships from 24 different species, all flying in formation with Earth's battle fleet. Captain Rodriguez, this is Admiral Thompson aboard the U.S. Leviathan. Outstanding work holding the line. Now let's finish this fight together. The combined fleet that engaged the Devourers at Beta Centauri was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships flew alongside Etherian cruisers, their advanced shields protecting the more aggressive human vessels. Arachnid fighters swarmed through space, their pilots guided by human tactical doctrine. Even the pacifist Verdant Communion had sent their bioships, their living hulls adapted for combat for the first time in their species' history. Admiral Thompson watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Leviathan. Beside him stood Counselor Veltar, who had requested permission to observe human military operations firsthand. Your species fights like nothing I have ever seen, the Etherian said, watching human destroyers coordinate their attacks with alien capital ships. You make war seem almost elegant. It's not elegant, Thompson replied, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. It's just necessary, and we've had a lot of practice making the necessary look easy. The turning point came when Commander Freya Lin, now serving as tactical coordinator for the entire fleet, identified the Devourer's weakness. The massive ships were powerful individually, but they relied on a central command structure that coordinated their actions. "All ships, concentrate fire on the central command vessel," she ordered over the fleet communication system. "Take out their queen, and the rest might fall apart." The combined firepower of 37 ships from 12 different species focused on a single target: human weapons designed for precision, alien energy beams that could boil oceans, exotic matter weapons that bent space itself, all directed at one massive organic ship that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. For a moment, it seemed like even that concentrated assault might not be enough. The command ship's hull absorbed incredible amounts of damage, regenerating almost as fast as it was destroyed. Then something changed. The regeneration slowed, stopped, and massive sections of the hull began to collapse inward. "Target destroyed," reported the tactical officer. "The remaining Devourer ships are dispersing." Admiral Thompson allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Fleet-wide communication, all ships. His image appeared on every vessel in the combined fleet, human, alien, and everything in between. Today we proved that the galaxy's peaceful civilizations are not defenseless. We showed that cooperation between species can create something stronger than any one of us alone. And we demonstrated that sometimes the most civilized thing you can do is fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. On the surface of Beta Centauri 4, 2 million survivors emerged from their underground shelters to see the stars again. Among them was Dr. Yathara, a scientist from the Luminous Collective who had been studying stellar formation when the Devourers arrived. "The human ship," she said, her assistant, pointing at the Valkyrie as it limped toward the fleet's formation. "It stayed here alone for hours, fighting to protect us. Why would they do that for strangers?" Her assistant, a young member of the Etherian species, looked up at the ship with something approaching awe. "Because that's what humans do. They fight for people they've never met, for reasons they sometimes can't even explain. I think that's what makes them different from the rest of us." 3 months after the Battle of Beta Centauri, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address humanity's application for membership. The chamber was packed to capacity, with representatives from every member species present. Council Prime. Zethkala rose to address the assembly, his massive form more imposing than ever. But there was something different in his manner, a respect that hadn't been there before. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," he began, "we gather today to vote on humanity's petition for full membership in our alliance. Before we proceed, I want to share something that I learned during the recent crisis." He gestured to a holographic display that showed the battle at Beta Centauri. "When the Devourers returned, our civilization was helpless. 3,000 years of peace had not prepared us for war. We had forgotten something fundamental, that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. And sometimes justice must be defended with force." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was not the kind of speech anyone expected from the leader of the galaxy's most peaceful coalition. "Humanity did not just save lives at Beta Centauri," Zethkala continued. "They saved our way of life. They reminded us that pacifism, without the strength to defend it, is merely surrender waiting to happen." Ambassador Torres stood to address the council. "Honored representatives, Earth does not seek membership in your alliance to change your ways. We seek membership to protect your ways. We offer ourselves as the sword and shield of galactic civilization, ready to fight when fighting is necessary, but equally ready to sheath our weapons when peace can be preserved." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species was admitted to the Council not despite their military capabilities, but because of them. Admiral Thompson stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Defense Command Station, watching ships from dozens of worlds conduct joint training exercises. Human tactics integrated with alien technology, creating new possibilities for defense and cooperation. "Admiral," came a voice behind him. He turned to see Elder Tessara, the ancient archive keeper who had spoken for humanity during the crisis. "Elder, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you," she said simply. "Your species has given the galaxy something it didn't know it had lost, the courage to stand up for what is right. We just did what needed to be done." "Yes, And that is precisely why you were needed. She paused, looking out at the mixed fleet of ships. The Devourers will return someday. They always do. But when they come back, they will find a galaxy that remembers how to fight for itself. Thompson nodded. And they'll find humanity standing ready to teach anyone who needs to learn. 6 months later, Captain Freya Lynn, now promoted to Admiral, stood before the first graduating class of the Galactic Military Academy. The students represented 43 different species, all learning human military doctrine adapted for their unique capabilities. You are the guardians of galactic civilization, she told them. You have learned not just how to fight, but why to fight. You carry the hopes of trillions of beings who sleep peacefully because you stand ready to defend them. As the ceremony concluded, Freya looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or outcasts, but as protectors. They had shown the universe that sometimes the greatest act of civilization is the willingness to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace protected by those who understood that some things are worth fighting for. And in the depths of space, where new threats might one day emerge, the combined fleets of 67 species trained together, ready to defend the civilization they had all helped to build. The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth's military power, but they had learned something more important. They had learned that true strength comes not from avoiding conflict, but from having the wisdom to know when conflict is necessary and the courage to face it when it comes. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 100 systems, beings of every conceivable form looked up at the stars and knew that somewhere out there, humanity stood watch, ready to fight for the peace they all cherished. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of hope. And sometimes hope comes in the form of a species that never forgot how to fight for what matters most.